The recent beta test for Dune Awakening has wrapped up, and while there was much anticipation surrounding this ambitious survival MMO set in the iconic universe of Arrakis, the experience left many feeling somewhat underwhelmed. Now, despite the game's promising premise and rich lore it draws from, several aspects during the beta phase did not fully meet expectations of everybody playing it. However, this does not mean that there were not very positive aspects of this game, leaving me believing that there is a lot to look forward to in the future of Dune Awakening. Now, let's take a second to look at what those things are. Now, in terms of the graphical nature of this game, it was spectacular. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to give this about a 9 flat out of 10 because when I look at the game, I think that Unreal Engine 5 was really utilized in a proper manner. But the reason why I'm not going to push it all the way to a 10 is more or less because I started noticing that a lot of assets, especially on the second day, a lot of the assets were becoming copy pasted, which kind of started ringing some alarm bells in my head, but kind of makes sense in terms of the way a deep desert, like weekly generated system or map system out there would kind of work, in terms of the fact that you just have a set number of assets that just randomly get shuffled up together and then thrown into the world every week as it gets erased. However, I thought that for the beginning stages of the game, you would add a little more energy into making sure every little corner and nook and cranny of that map was kind of feeling unique all in one. But with those shared assets, it's not a big issue. It's not something that I'll drop out, but I just like to see developers put the additional energy into the game, which allows people to feel like everything is a unique item or a unique hill or a unique bluff or a unique butte. These type of things really kind of encourage people to want to explore more and become more interactive into the game. Now, for the most part, a lot of people have really taken their time to go out of their way and really trash the combat inside of Dune Awakening, which I felt there was no big issue at all. In fact, I felt the combat actually ran rather smoothly. All of the classes' specific abilities all worked without any kind of hiccup. They all pretty much delivered what was being promised from the descriptions of each of the abilities, minus a few which I thought were a little bit underwhelming, such as the Mintat's poison. Kind of felt like it was just maybe debuffing it, and maybe that's what it was meant to be, but when I think poison, I think, slow ticks over time of death. Regardless, in terms of the combat, for PvE, I felt like everything is right on line, and I would say that the combat itself should be able to get like a 9 as well. It was a very well thought out system. Everything seems to work, and you can't really judge combat early in a game anyways, because once things start being found to be too overpowered, they start getting nerfed, and things that are underwhelming tend to get buffed, and there's always this huge balancing game for the devs to try to make everything as equal as possible. However, the way the system is working, it very much is a rock, scissors, paper to an extent, where the Bene Gesserit class can pull you in with their speaking abilities, but if you're the Mentat, you can just skill into completely ignoring the Bene Gesserit pull. So these type of things for PvP in the future will be kind of impressive to see how it works out. Now, I don't want to rank it too high for this reason, is that for PvE, it felt very smooth and well put together. However, I'm very concerned about how all these skills are going to come together and influence the realm of PvP when we can actually see it on a larger scale. I previously mentioned that I felt this game was more of a demo than a beta test, and this is due to the fact that it really limited what we could do and try inside of this game. Sure, by the end of it, people were finding scanners and running around the desert, picking up steel and things along these lines, which is like something you're doing only because there's nothing else that you can possibly do inside the game. And usually with a beta, I feel like it offers a vaster amount of the gameplay for people to jump in and try to experience and test out to see if there's any bugs or issues that might arise from whenever you are using certain abilities or building certain things or flying through the air, whatever it might be. Where I felt this felt just really much like a demo. It was the game compressed down into its basic form, allowing us, 25 hours of gameplay and to kind of test out the really basic schema and concepts of it. Now, with that in mind, you always have to ask yourself, what's the replayability of a game like this? Once you hit an end game, how exciting and interesting is this game going to remain to you? And for me, I felt the beta at least reflected that it wasn't going to be that much fun in terms of the end game. For this reason, I'm giving it a very low score of about 4 out of 10. And I'm doing this, very cautiously because I know that at launch, we are going to see a larger world open up and there's going to be more things that we can do. However, it does kind of feel Conan-y in the sense that once you reach the end game of Conan, all that was really left was for you to run out and gather a whole bunch of resources and just start stockpiling. And the way that they are explaining the deep desert is working, it just feels like this will be the same situation. You're gonna hit a point where there's absolutely nothing else left to do but hit rocks. And of course, there is the purpose of PvP in the end game, but we weren't able to see that in the beta or feel how PvP could affect somebody's opinion of a possible in-game proposal. So just keeping all these things in mind, I kind of felt like this demo really limited us to a lot of features which would have been very entertaining for a lot of people to try to, experience and access and test during this beta test. But once again, it looks like Funcom kind of dropped the ball on this and just made it very limiting. And I'm going to say that too many times, I know, but I just felt like there could have been more there for us to do than what they actually handed us, because the linear questing was great, but it wasn't enough. Since the idea of questing was brought up here recently, I also want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what I believe the creativity basis of this game is. Now, the game itself is based on the Dune universe, so all of the creativity is already there, more or less. All that you as a developer has to do is figure out ways to thread the needle through all of the existing concepts to kind of make it feel like it's flowing in a direction which is positive for the players to experience. Now, in terms of the questing during this beta, I kind of felt it was very flat. Real MMOs drive a player to a purpose. So, for example, there's needs for curveballs and other realities that happen inside of the storyline that you are experiencing, which make you sit back and go, oh, I can't believe it was like that, yada, yada, yada. This was very straightforward, go out, fetch, bring back to me. Every single quest was this way. Nothing was really an extended, long, played out, dramatic storyline, which I think Funcom has an issue in doing so, because they were trying to find that perfect middle ground of Conan and their other games, and they were trying to make it into an MMO in a sense. Where this is failing in terms of story-driven concepts for an MMO. So what I'm trying to say here is, for example, with the Swordmaster quest, you're literally told to go out and kill 3 guys, come back, and hey, you now have the ability to start learning Swordmaster. Now, if you're someone who's wanting to drive to in-game and don't care about story-driven concepts, that's perfectly fine. In and out, let's get it over with. But I think the true beauty of an MMO is the ability to make stories more interesting and relatable, as well as kind of throw in the wow factor. So for example, with that Swordmaster skill line, you could have just went there, killed the 3, and then as you're making your way back, you run into another person who says, oh, that guy was a Skylark who just wanted you to kill these 3 people. I can teach you the right way to go. Now let's start doing something else. You know, that little curveball that goes in there where you realize, oh crap, I literally just killed 3 people for no reason, just for this guy who's lied to me about something. I'm not saying this is the way the storyline should go, but I'm saying that this is an example of how good story creation and writing occurs inside of a very well-written MMO. And I felt for this game, the MMO storyline aspect kind of didn't exist. It reminded me a lot of Conan, where you literally go through the vast majority of the game never talking to anybody, but you sometimes stumble upon Conan in a certain city or something like this happens. Or you talk to a guy by a campfire that explains this and that happens, and you learn how to wave. I think Funcom needs to dedicate more time and energy towards more creative story writing, which they might be in the future doing this. However, at this point with the beta test, since that's what we're covering, I would say the story experience was very low. For me, it was about a 3, 2.5. It was just felt like it was something I had to do. It didn't feel like something I wanted to experience. Now, there is one thing that you can always be guaranteed of when it comes to Funcom, that there is going to be a lot of dedicated attention thrown at their games. When you see Conan, you see every 3 to 6 months a new DLC which you could purchase and get more skins, make new types of buildings, you know, new types of factions were brought into the picture. And I believe that Funcom will continue this trend inside of Dune Awakening, considering that they probably have way more money dedicated to this. So at least you can always know that there is a future progression for this game to be developing in or towards. So it's something that is really refreshing to know that you're not going to wake up tomorrow and all the servers are going to be shut down and you're not going to have any access to a game that you were enjoying playing. So it is definitely worth investing in and trying to play to see where the development travels. But once again, this is something for the future. Now, overall, I do believe this beta test was a move in a positive direction for Funcom and the people who are interested in trying out Dune Awakening in the future. I did not agree with how the Funcom company went about distributing it to the public, meaning, you know, day 2 they announce, hey, if you've paid money for the advanced copy, you get to play now. They should have just always had it this way. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to just pump out keys to third parties. The streaming aspect with keys is understandable. This goes with every game, but I just think Funcom handled the distribution of this beta test very poorly. And that kind of makes me wonder, who is it that's working on their marketing system to give them these kind of bad ideas that at least in the last second they could change to make it into a positive thing. But overall, I think that the beta test itself offered a very smooth, easy ride for somebody to kind of test what the game is about. However, I do wish that they would have thought deeper about the amount of activities and experiences that people could have had if they would have just broadened the scope a little bit more, made more opportunities for PvP to occur in a more organic fashion instead of just sitting around on one ship all day long waiting for anybody to come around so you could gank them. It's just not a very positive way to influence something that is expected to be at least 40% of your total gameplay, if not more. Now, what did you guys think? Hopefully everybody had a positive experience with Dune. I know overall my idea of the game was very positive, but if there were some things that you experienced that you thought were subpar or things that were absolutely fabulous and great, please leave comments below and let me know, and let's have discussions about it inside of YouTube. Also, everybody, thanks again for watching.